My go-to weapons for concealed carry, they vary for specific reasons. Okay, so we've talked about plenty of times before. My go-to, my favorite is a revolver. I'll link that video up where I talked about why I prefer to carry a revolver over a semi-automatic with a slide and all that other type of stuff. But let's talk about the semi-autos that have slides, the different scenarios I carry each, and we'll just talk about each scenario. First, we're going to talk about is the Beretta PX4 Storm. Now, you can get this in different variations. You get a full size, a compact, or a subcompact, and it chambers different types of round. I have the one that chambers a 40. And although I don't carry this very often, this is my most reliable concealed carry when I don't know what the hell I'm getting into. This is relied on by a lot of police departments around the nation. And so the thing I like about this a lot is it has a polymer construction. You can actually replace the back grips. Very, very reliable use case. You can go single or double action with this weapon. Built-in actual Picatinny rail, so you can just throw on a light or whatever, a laser you want to as well. This is just one of those weapons where it's been out for over 2 decades, different variations. It's very reliable. This is the weapon I pick up when I have no clue what I'm getting into that day. The trigger pull feels really good. It's a little bit longer. And I think that makes sense because this is not designed to be played with on a range by a sniper. This lives in the streets. It's designed to be in the streets. And having that longer trigger pull does kind of make it for an unintentional fire being avoided, which is great. And overall, I'm not the biggest fan of, it's kind of a little bit top heavy, especially when you get this thing into the hand itself, but it still weighs less than 30 ounces without the magazine. And it's been out for so long. It's made in Italy. And I think it's one of my favorite not made in USA weapons that you can get. Beretta's always been making some great stuff. They've been doing this for a very long time. I have mine outfitted with the Nicor. This is the November Papa Lima 25 Light. And this thing here is pretty good. It does have a nice momentary switch on the front. And you can also stay on with the same switch. It's easy to push, whether it's your trigger finger to straight off the trigger itself, or you can use your offhand if you have both hands up at the same time. It's easy to activate that light. So I'm a big fan of that. This is also one of the only lights that I have and that has a battery that removes out on the side. You don't know how convenient that is because I hate one of the reasons I don't run lasers or run lights on my weapons, because I like to train without them. This weapon I've put over 400 rounds through, and I just got this light and I've only put like 50 rounds through with the light. So I need to train more with the light. But a lot of times the battery, you have to take the entire thing off just to charge it. I hated that. This one has it so you can literally change it out by just sliding it on the side, which makes it a lot more convenient. And it's very adjustable for different size rails for different weapons. This light specifically will go fine on a subcompact just as it would on a full-size gun. So a big fan of this. But if you're looking for something where you're not 100% sure what you're going to be getting into that day, it's decent to carry. I can't recommend the Beretta PX4 any more. Now, before I move on to the next weapon, if you're getting good content out of this video, hit the like button. Also consider subscribing to the channel as well. I would love to have you part of the battalion. I like talking about everyday carry stuff, shit hits the fan, CCW, all of that good stuff. Now we're gonna just, before we go into my baby, let's just talk about a good backup gun, a good ankle gun, a good weapon to wear if you're gonna be dressed up. You want something that has very small printing on it. That's kind of where I rely on the Smith & Wesson, the Bodyguard series of weapons. Specifically, I have the one that chambers a 380. You can also get one that chambers I think you can get one that chambers a 9mm, and you can get one, I can't remember, but I know for sure you can get one that chambers a 9mm. I have the older version. Before they actually purchased the company and invested into different, they purchased Crimson Trace lasers, and now you can get Crimson Trace lasers in the version 2 of these weapons. So a lot of police departments use the Bodyguard 380. They authorize use by their officers as a backup weapon. So it's great for a pocket gun, it's great for an ankle gun, and it's great for a backup weapon. So a lot of police departments like to use the Bodyguards 380s or any 380s, whether it's by Ruger or whatever, as a backup weapon, authorized backup weapon on duty or off duty. And The thing I like about this one, I wish I had the one that was modified like LA Police Department had theirs, where they got rid of the thumb safety. This thing has such a long trigger pull that it almost doesn't need a safety. It reminds me of the trigger pull of a revolver that's just super long, about 8 to 10 pounds of test on it. And that can be annoying until you train with this. I've put 500, almost 600 rounds through this weapon. And once you field strip it, you oil it, you continue to use the weapon itself. It is broken in really well. And now I'm a big fan of the trigger pull itself. It feels more reliable to me. It does feel really, really good in regards to feeling safe to be able to use this thing, where I almost always just leave it off safe because the trigger pull is so long, and that just makes me feel most comfortable using this weapon. Any weapon that you get, my recommendation is it put at least 300, 400 of rounds through it. If you want to get your, and then I also like to buy cheap imported rounds as well, just to test and see how the firing pin will react with ammo that's not as good as stuff that's made here in the States. But this thing is easy to field strip and clean, oil and all of that good stuff. The thing I like about this is it does fit well if you want to appendix carry. So it really works well for putting this thing in your gut area, or maybe on your, if you want to do a right side rear draw, it works well for either one of those scenarios. And it's very, very small footprint. Now you can't get this thing down to a single action. So if that's something that you prefer, then you're going to go with something else. But me personally, trying this out, specifically testing it, thinking about it versus the Ruger that makes the 380 version as well, I like this one a lot more. I think that it was a lot easier to grip. And especially once you put the magazine in, it does give just a little bit more. Your pinky's still going to be hanging off, but you do have a little bit more for your ring finger to kind of sit there and not have to worry about anything like that at all. So this is my go-to if I need to be a little bit more discreet. If I'm gonna be wearing dress clothes, if I'm gonna be wearing my shirt tucked in, I normally will wear this appendix carry if my shirt's not tucked in, or I'll do an ankle holster if depending on the scenario, depending on where we're going. That's kind of my go-to. So if you're a big fan of something that's a little bit smaller, discreet, then that's going to be the way for you to go. Now, here's my baby. This is my barbecue party carry weapon. This is just completely, the thing about me when I get a weapon is I think about effective use. So for this 40, the effective use for this is probably 25 meters, less than 100 feet. Same thing with the lightweight Commander by Colt. But the reason I have this is because of the storied history that goes behind it. 1949, the US government put out a requirement. They wanted to find a 1911 style of weapon that was more lightweight so that they could and it had a chamber of 9mm so that they can issue it to their officers. Go figure, right? And so Colt came out at that time with the Commander. They came out with the Commander 1911. And the thing is when this initially started getting made in 1950, they made it in 38 Super, 45, and 9mm. Fast forward 20 years, they ended up coming out with a steel version of the same weapon. They called that the Combat Commander, and this is the Lightweight Commander, and those names are still the same today. The Lightweight Commander, I'm a big fan of because it chambers a 45, but it weighs about as much as a 40, a standard 40. This thing is about 29 ounces without magazine, and it's a 4.25 inch barrel. So what are you giving up by having a lighter 1911? The recoil is something you have to get used to. So if that's something that you're not a big fan of, maybe you get a 5-inch, or maybe you just get one that's made of steel instead of made of aluminum. You have to think about what's going to work for you. This has G10 scales on it as well that have fantastic grips. It's a 1911, so of course you can change those out if you really, really wanted to. But I love how this thing functions. The single action on it is great. The trigger pull on this thing is great. It's just an overall really easy weapon to kind of get down with and use. The trigger pull feels good. The sights on it are some of the best iron sights that I've used on a weapon. The markings on the iron sights is kind of hard to see here, but the markings on the iron sights are similar to the markings on the Beretta. I just love the clean, easy use of it. This is the gun that goes through the belt. Okay, it's too big for an appendix carry, but it's an aggressive looking weapon. You pull this out when it's time to use it. It has a storied past on it, and it just feels really, really good in the hand. The thing about this is This is, if I'm going to a party, a barbecue party, we're all sitting down, we slap our weapons down on the coffee table, not the upholstery, so we don't tear shit up. This is my weapon that kind of just impresses the boys and kind of gets the job done. So for me personally, if you're going to own a big one, I would say go for Springfield or a Coat when it comes to the 1911. There's a whole lot of companies that make them, but those are kind of the ones I go to the most. Now, what are some of your favorite, when it comes to your CCW, what are some of your favorite weapons to go with? Do you like to run lasers? Do you like to run lights? Are you all about the Hellcats? Are you all about stuff from Taurus? Or you want to get stuff from Ruger? I know there's a lot of brands. I have a lot more weapons I could have chose from, but these are the ones that I go to are probably my most reliable. Another thing to think about for your CCW is that if you have to use it, there's a likelihood that you're not going to have your weapon for a number of days, weeks, or months. If you have to use your weapon, even in a self-defense case, it may be confiscated by our boys in blue while they do their investigations or whatever. So whatever you carry, be okay with you not having that weapon if you ever had to come into the scenario where you were using it. Second thing is, no matter what you get, I've said this earlier in the video, but I'm going to say it again. Breaking in your weapon is crazy important. I've had this weapon for 11 years. I've had this weapon for 10 years, and I've had this weapon for 12 years. The thing is all of my weapons have had hundreds of rounds put through them because these are the weapons I rely on the most for CCW. I have other handguns that I've owned less time and put way less rounds through, and I've owned more time and have put way less rounds through. I don't train for them for self-defense, and I would never trust myself to walk around carrying those weapons because I haven't trained with them enough. That includes like 9mm and stuff like 22s, all that good stuff. So you really need to think about what's going to be right for you. What do you feel the most comfortable carrying? And do you want something that has the ability to do single and double action? Do you want something that can do double action only? Do you want something that does or does not have a safety? There's a lot of different variations, but for whatever you decide to get, rent something, go to a gun range, rent something that they have, and maybe get yourself 150 rounds and sit there, fire the weapon, go back to the store owner, see if you're allowed to field strip the weapon and give it a quick clean and oiling, and then fire it some more. If you feel comfortable with that weapon after doing those things, that might be the weapon for you. Now you are renting a weapon, so that the weapon's probably already had hundreds of rounds, if not thousands of rounds already put through it. So that's something else to consider. But comment down below, what do you like to rock? What do you like to carry? Do you even carry? Are you anti-second A and you're just like, what the FX? Let me know with your comments down below. If this is your first time stopping by, hit the subscribe button. I would love to have you a part of the battalion. If this is not your first time stopping by, well, thank you once again for watching me run my grape. For everyone else, we'll speak soon.